Hey friend, I am really excited today about this video. Today, I'm going to be sharing with you about how to move from making a living to designing a life. Are you ready? Let's go. Hello, my name is Dom, and I help people to step into their truth and power. And so today I am really excited to talk about this topic of making a living versus designing a life, because I came upon something over the past couple of weeks. I've been really clearing out my house of all of its clutter, all of it. And some of it I've had for a very, very long time, since even being a child. But about 10 years ago, I went through a divorce. And at that time of my life, I felt like my life, like the big reset button in my life had been pressed. And there was a lot of change going on. And I was not in a happy place. I was very disgusted with where I had landed in my life at that point in time. I really wasn't happy. I gained about 40 pounds. I was on anxiety medication. I had just moved here into this condo. And I just wasn't happy with with where I was at that point in my life. Like I worked so hard to acquire everything that I had. I poured so much into relationships, and like, for what? Just to lose so much of it. And at that point in time, I really began assessing like what was important to me. And I had discovered that I hadn't been designing my life. I was making a living. And the difference is, energetically, when we're making a living, we're doing the minimum to get by. It's almost like you're in this survivor self type of energy. Maybe you're in that survivor type of energy around your job. Maybe you're going into a job that's paying the bills all right, but you can't stand being there. That was my experience for sure. Maybe you're in a relationship that feels dead, and the idea of getting out or even changing it feels just too scary or overwhelming. Again, we are just making a living. We're just trying to get by, versus designing a life where we are consciously making empowering decisions about what we want and where we want to go. Every decision isn't coming from a place of fear, but it's coming from a place of empowerment. The difference is, when we're making a living, it's kind of like we're surviving, just trying to get by, just trying to survive and make it through. Where when we're designing a life, we are actively creating, and it's fun. There's a funness to that in experiencing. There's in experiencing that change. There's an adventure to it. And so I had been cleaning out my house, and I came across something 10 years ago that I had written when I first moved in. And I ripped them out. I had kept a journal, but there were 3 specific pages that I wrote here that I want to share some things with you. Because back then, it was August 2012. And I wrote some things down. I wrote like my vision for what I desired. And this is where I had started creating or designing my life. I began by writing it down. And so I invite you to do this too if you haven't done this yet. But what I wrote down was, I don't want to make a living. I want to design my life. My current conditions don't reflect my ultimate potential. And I wrote down, I had different goals for different aspects of my life. And my goals, I wrote, need to be intentional and in action and persistent. And I need to be open to change along the way. So how many times do we begin something like this, where we're trying to design our life? We come up with this plan, and we think we've got this plan, and then we begin executing the plan, and things don't go according to plan. And then we scrap it and we give up. How many times has that happened for you? I know it's happened to me multiple times. But instead of giving up, what I want to invite you to do is to be open to change as you go. Don't abandon the plan. Don't abandon the life that you want to design. Just go with the flow of change and where you're being led to go. So this vision that I had for myself, I broke down into individual goals. And the first group of goals were personal development goals. And what I realized, the very first thing I needed to do was to get fit and healthy again. And I wanted to do something like within 60 to 90 days, I wanted to lose the 40 pounds and I wanted to be off my anxiety medications that I had been on for almost 3 years at that point. That was the very first thing I did. And within 90 days, not 60 days, but 90 days, I did accomplish that. And I was off the medications and I've remained off the medications. Another thing I wrote is that I wanted to tap more into my inner spirit. There was something that was calling me deeper there that I wasn't quite understanding. Well, I've certainly done that in the past 10 years. I've gone places I never thought I would have experienced over these past 10 years. And a lot of it is because I've remained open to change and I've stayed intentional in action and being persistent in driving that goal, designing that life for myself. The next thing I wrote for my personal development goals was to be more patient. This is something I'm still working on. I'm better than I was, but I'm not where I want to be, especially with myself, to be more patient with myself. The other thing I wanted was more peace. And this was more like mental peace for me at the time when I wrote this, because I didn't have a lot of mental peace. There was a lot of stuff, a lot of self-judgment, a lot of things that I was putting on myself and blaming myself for. Well, we can't be, when we're in that judgment and blame, it's impossible to be holding peace. And I wanted to have less judgment. And I wanted to become more curious. And so much of this journey for myself over the past 10 years was learning how to allow myself that grace, to be less judgmental and to be more curious. And instead of focusing on the negative, to focus on the positive first. That was really important at that time, because at that time I was very cynical. And I had a tendency to go right into protective mode because I didn't want to be hurt again, which led to this last bullet item, less fear of being in a relationship again. And so I had really, after my divorce, I built walls. I built a wall actually around my heart, and I didn't let anybody in. And it's only been the last couple of years, 3 years maybe, I started really doing work on that. And, that I've overcome that fear as well. So those were my personal development goals. And I feel like in the work that I'm doing, like I've done really well with a lot of these. Now it's been 10 years, right? This wasn't something I just, like my fitness, I did in 60 to 90 days, and I've maintained it the majority of that time, which has been awesome. But a lot of these things, it's been a constant work in progress. It's been making the decision to show up every day and persistent action, persistent decision making. Like, this is the way I want to show up. This is the new me who I want to become. I don't want to keep falling into that old rut that I had fallen into before. Then after my personal development goals, I had professional or business goals. And the very first thing that I wrote here was, I want to create impact. And in terms of the what, I wrote that I want to be coaching people in a powerful way, in a transformative way. And ding. And so, gosh, that's so funny. And so at the time, I was looking at people like Tony Robbins and John Maxwell as inspirations of who I want to be, who I want to become. I still hold those people in high regard, especially John Maxwell. That man is amazing. But I have a dream to do that. And I've begun living that dream out. Again, I wrote this 10 years ago. The next thing I wrote is to replace my full-time corporate job. Instead of feeling enslaved by a job, to do what I do for a living and love doing it. So maybe you're in this position of wanting to design your life, and you're in that transitory position of, you've got a foot in each world, a foot in becoming an entrepreneur and a foot in becoming still working in the job. And that's okay. Like, there's nothing wrong with transition. As long as that is what your heart is leading you to do. If that is your truth for what your heart is leading you to do, by all means, stand in that truth and live it out. But if you're holding on to that corporate job because you're in fear of taking the leap, I want to invite you to take some time to really explore that fear, of what the fear is of and what it's keeping you from as well. One of the things that my fear kept me from was my own freedom. I kept myself captive. I smothered myself in my own safety because I was afraid to do something really powerful for myself and stand and make a decisive decision that I'm doing this, I'm going all in. Well, the thing that I realized, it felt like I was jumping off a cliff and I felt like I didn't have a parachute. And what I've realized over time is that I really didn't need a parachute, you see, because when we're following our heart, when we're following that divine leading, we don't need a parachute. We forget that we actually have wings and we're going to fly. When we're being led divinely through our heart, we will fly. Now, the first time you take that leap, yeah, you might feel like you're going to crash for a moment, but your heart never leads you off a cliff to die. It never does. There will be something there that will give you lift. If you're not capable of providing your own lift, something will come along to give you that lift, but you're not going to see it until you make that leap. It's not going to be revealed to you. And we have to trust that process. We have to trust where God, or if you refer to it as the universe, whatever you take stock in when all the chips are down, whatever your belief system dictates, you need to really lean into that. But we, in our humans, our egos, we want to try and control everything. We need to have the whole plan spelled out, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, before we will even think about taking the step off the cliff. We have to have all of our ducks in order. Or if we don't have all of our ducks in order, we think it's not the right time yet. Very often, when we're being led by our heart, the divine leading, it doesn't give us the entire plan. It doesn't work like that. It leads us one step at a time. And so what is that next step that you're being called to make? What is that next step? In fact, what is it that you're being called to do? Share that in the comments below. And what is that next step? Because I want to encourage you to take that step. Not from a place of fear, but from a place of empowerment. Step into your power. Begin designing your life. The design comes to you one step at a time. You may know the end state, but you probably don't know how to get there, and that's okay. That is true for just about all of us. The one thing I feel pretty confident about is you are sure where you want to be, and you might not know how to get there, but you probably know the first step you need to take. And if you don't, get quiet with your heart. Find out where it's leading you to go. Pray on it, meditate on it, get quiet to tap into that place. I'm telling you, my friend, it is a completely different energy to live from every day. That place of surviving versus that place of creating every day. And then on the third page of these goals that I wrote, I also wrote, I want to be in a play or I want to speak on stage. Again, this was back in 2012 that I wrote this. And I had an opportunity to speak on stage in November of 2019. And it was a very powerful experience. And I've spoken on virtual stages like this as well, countless times. And I absolutely love doing this because I feel that it is a place where I can create impact for many, many people. It speaks to that aspect of what's important to me, creating impact and helping people to transform and break through their fears so that they can begin living the powerful life that they're being called to step into and live. And then the last thing here on the page I wrote is to work on the beach or in a warm climate. Now, that one I have not reached yet. That is a work in progress, but I have the vision and the how is unveiling. In fact, I'm already taking steps to begin living that how. I'm in the infancy steps of it, the very beginning steps, but I feel very confident it's just going to be a matter of time before I'm able to step into that. I am not giving up on that. I want to be able to work on the beach in a warm climate so much. And I can see it. I can feel it. And I know that it will come true. It's just I need to be patient with myself and I need to allow myself to grow into the ability to do that. To be perfectly honest with you, I don't know that I have the discipline yet to own that responsibility. I don't know. I've never done that. But the idea of it is really compelling to me, especially when it's the wintertime here in New Jersey. Actually, it's pretty nice out today. It's like 60 degrees. But typically, this time of year, it's very cold, it's snowy. I can't stand being in this area of the country. I want to be in a warm, sunny climate on a beach, ideally. That would be amazing to help people to create impact in people's lives from a place that feeds me in that kind of way. The last thing I wrote on this sheet was, this is your time to make your life. This is your time to make your life. And I began taking steps right in that moment to begin making that life a reality, designing my life. And it was, I initiated it starting with taking care of my health first. That was where that was the very first thing that I started working on. And that helped feed everything else. And everything else has worked itself out over time. And it's been a constant process of being open to learn about myself, being open to crack open some things inside of me that needed to be dealt with, fears especially. Some of them are even old beliefs that kept me in fear. So I don't know if this video is speaking to you or to anybody who's watching this, but if it is, let me know, because I really want to encourage you to begin moving out of making a living into designing a life. And if this is something that I can support you with, reach out to me. I've done this work. I continue doing this work. This is almost a life's work for me. And I want to help other people begin doing this for their life. This is your life work, is designing your life. Designing your life is your life's work, not making a living. That it feels so, I felt so entrapped by that. And I know many of you do too. It's time. This is your time to make your life. If this video has spoken to you, I invite you to join my free online community, Pro Empowerment Online. I am there sharing content very similar to this in the group each week, but further, you can share freely in the group without feeling judged with like-minded people. And I really would love to be able to connect with you in that group as you move forward, designing the life that you want to live. And if you would like to receive one-on-one coaching, I do have a couple of spots open for that opportunity, just contact me and I will share with you what that might look like and how I work. I only work with a handful of people at a time, but I hope to have the opportunity to connect with you, if not in the community, one-on-one, to serve powerfully, to create impact in your life. I love you. And until my next video, stay healthy, stay well, and stay empowered.